But look, I have spoken at length in recent weeks about the international crisis that Myanmar has become. I care not what the Biden apologist might say, but outfits like China, Russia and the military generals of Myanmar know they can sleep comfortably with a weak US president beholden to the left. I warned prior to the US presidential election that this would happen. I said on Monday, Aung San Suu Kyi faced court for the first time, charged with serious made-up offences like importing walkie-talkies. Her only offence is she won the last election with 346 seats out of 416. We now have the military get square. The 75-year-old leader hasn't been cited since the coup on February 1. The West and the free world have been characterised by impotence. But at last, something is happening in Canberra, not much, I might add, but a parliamentary inquiry has examined, if I could use the word loosely, the situation in Myanmar. The Foreign Affairs and Aid Subcommittee of the Joint Standing Committee on Foreign Affairs in Trade held a public hearing yesterday in Canberra, where it heard a range of views on this military coup. The Liberal member for Wentworth, Dave Sharma, is the chair of the subcommittee. Now, this bloke has gears. He matriculated from Turramurra High School in 1993 with the highest possible tertiary entrance rank of 100. He went to Cambridge University, studied natural sciences, transferred to law, graduated with first-class honours, then returned to Sydney to study medicine, but he left that and joined the Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade, gained a master's degree in international relations. He became a major figure in the Department of Prime Minister and Cabinet and was appointed by the then Foreign Affairs Minister Bob Carr in 2013 as ambassador to Israel at the age of 37. Not the youngest person to be appointed, but one of the youngest. So he knows his way around this scene and he joins me. Dave Sharma, thank you for your time. How dispiriting is all this Myanmar stuff?
It's been awful to watch. I mean, it's taken Myanmar back a generation or more. We've had 10 years now, really, of relative democracy and relative freedom and relative liberty in Myanmar, and the generals have really just attempted to wind back the clock. The one thing I would say that has been encouraging has been the bravery and the courage shown by some of the people on the streets, and particularly the younger generation, the people who have known a period of some freedom and some prosperity and some economic and political liberty. They are fighting really hard to save their country. But they've cut back.
Myanmar, I mean, they've destroyed they've destroyed all the instruments where these people can notify the outside world. I mean, you were involved in a one-day public hearing. Now, I would say to you, Dave, without meaning any offence, surely this is just a gesture. I mean, one day, what are you going to achieve?
Well, look, it's a start, Alan, and I don't pretend it's going to, solve anything overnight. But I think there's a lot of community groups in Australia who want to have an input into this, want to have their voices heard, and we in the Parliament certainly want to. We in the Parliament certainly want to hear from them. And I think, look, I see this as the start of a process. I'm sure we'll have more hearings. I think the generals are having a harder time of governing the country than they thought they might, and that gives me hope that they might seek to go back to the barracks or can be convinced to return to the barracks and leave the governing to those who are legitimately elected to represent their people.
But see, your people talked yesterday about the protection of fundamental human rights. Now, 3,000 people that we know of have been detained, over 700 civilians murdered. When does talk give way to some action in all of this?
Look, it's not an easy situation, Al. I mean, it's terrible tragedy, terrible loss of life, but the generals in Myanmar are incredibly impervious to
no one's
pressure
listening.
or international condemnation. They don't care, and the countries around them that can really wield influence here are the neighbours. That's Thailand, that's India, that's China, and it's Bangladesh to a degree. And
China's supplying them with their ammunition. China's supplying them with their guns and ammunition.
Look, but China has an interest here in stability in Myanmar. They don't want unrest on their borders. They have a several thousand kilometre long land border with Myanmar, and in the past they've supported the armed groups who are opposed to the generals in the north of the country. So I think China is a little more complicated here than we might think, and I think there is potential for them to be a constructive actor. And Thailand shares a long land border with Myanmar, doesn't want people fleeing that country and into their own country. And look, we've got generals running Thailand. They should be able to talk to one another, general to general, and perhaps convince them to step back.
What about the Australian economist there, Dr. Sean Turnell, who's been falsely accused of attempting to flee Myanmar with secret state financial information? I mean, what's his fate?
Look, He's facing a very difficult situation, and we are concerned about him. I mean, the charges against him are preposterous, just as they are the charges they've levelled against Aung San Suu Kyi and the president and other senior figures in the NLD. They're made-up charges. They're based on the flimsy of evidence on laws that were long outdated on the statute books. But he has been caught up in this, and it's part of a bigger purge of the military against anyone who was senior within the NLD or close to them. So we have to work hard for his release, but that's going to be a long road, I fear.
Just before you go, Dave, I mean, does the left hand know what the right hand is doing? I mean, Europe, the United States and Britain released a joint statement mid-March condemning the, quote, brutal violence against unarmed citizens, arguing it was immoral and indefensible. We didn't sign up. I mean, how pathetic does that make us look?
Look, I can understand that reaction, Alan. I think we've got a few particular equities in play there that those other countries don't, one of them being Sean Turnell, who you mentioned. We don't want to jeopardise the chances of his release, but it's a fine line to walk, and I can understand the concern. I certainly heard it yesterday from community groups who want us to express a greater degree of moral outrage at what's going on. I completely empathise with that. OK, well, now, I don't want you to get a swelled head, and I know you won't, but people watching tonight are saying, what on earth is this bloke doing sitting on the back bench? It is transparent that you know a lot about these issues from your experience, and I just wish we could hear more from you. But look, thank you for making that start. It's very important, but I think the correspondence I'm getting from the comments I'm making here, Dave Sharma, indicate that the Australian people are very, very concerned about this and expect us to be very directly involved in some kind of repair of the awful damage that's being done to this democratic country. That's exactly what I'm hearing, Alan, and thank you for the interest you're showing. Not at all. Thank you for your time, Dave. Good to talk to you. There is Dave Sharma, the federal Liberal member for Wentworth, and I know what you're saying. He should be in the ministry.